So let's dive right in. Positivity can be a really powerful tool to get the most out of your team and produce excellent results, but it's not necessarily something we talk about a whole lot. So today we're honored to have a distinguished panel of experts who are going to share with us their insights on positivity in the workplace. Due to a scheduling conflicts, Director Scott Frakes was unable to join us, but we are thrilled to have Philana Blakely from the Department of Correctional Services in his place. Joining Philana, we have Rochelle Campbell from the Department of Health and Human Services, and Ina Karpuk and Brian Spick with the Department of Administrative Services. So on behalf of the training team and everyone who's in attendance today, I just want to thank each of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your experience with us today. We're going to start by just asking each panelist to introduce themselves and share their insights and experiences on positivity in the workplace. So Rochelle, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, I'm pretty excited about the opportunity, and I appreciate you giving us a chance to participate in this. I think it's a very important session to be doing, not only because of work, but because of people personally. And so I always like to start this out with a what's in it for me kind of mentality, because bottom line is we all want to know what's in it for me if I do this. So I'm going to start off with that positive people, they tend to be healthier. They tend to live longer. They deal with stress better. So if you're in a high stress position, you really want to make sure that you are trying to be positive. And you ultimately become more productive because you're not drawn into the drama. You're not drawn into the constant complaining and griping. But even more important, people who are positive tend to be more likely to find jobs faster, they tend to get promoted, and they tend to make more money than their negative counterparts. So good reasons to try to focus on this. So bottom line, the question is, how do you become more of a positive person at work? I have found that number one in my book is to smile. I've taught customer service training, and people are like, well, I'm in a call center. Nobody can tell because if I smile or not. You can seriously hear a smile, and all of us have called a business or a customer care center, and you know the person who's smiling and you know the person who isn't. There's most definitely difference in smiling. If you are smiling and you have a genuine smile, even when you don't feel like it, you're going to find out that there's a part of your brain that is activated, and it actually will trick you into being more positive and happier. Personally, I had a situation where several years ago I had an employee that came up to me and said, you always are in a good mood and you must never have any stress or any problems. And I'm going, yeah, right, as I'm smiling. And I told him at the time, I says, you know what, on my worst days, I have found most successful is I put a smile on my face, I try to think of something positive, and I go visit the employees. I say hi to each one. How are you doing? How's your day going? And they smile in return. And because of their smiles, my positivity increased, and I can go through the day. He kind of had that look on like, oh, she's crazy. This is another one of those HR things. There's no truth to it. He came back to me several months later, and he said, remember that conversation we had? And I'm trying to think, okay, what conversation? He goes, I tried that. I started smiling to my coworkers, even though what I really wanted to do was punch them in the face. And it completely turned around the work environment and how I dealt with each one of them. So keep in mind, smile. And I know we're all like, oh, no one can tell. We're wearing this mask and you can't tell if I'm smiling. I say, look at my wrinkles. If you see the wrinkles in my eyes, you know I'm smiling. So that's the first step. The second thing is show gratitude and be thankful for even the small things. We all feel really good when someone says thanks for what you're doing, but your goal should be once a day, thank somebody for something that you're thankful for. Find something. Maybe you were sitting on a Zoom call and somebody said something and you're like, whoa, what did they just say? Maybe it's the cat running in the background or something, and just reach out to them and say, thanks, I appreciate what you did. You've inspired me to do something better, or you made me think about something different, or you just made me smile, and that made my day better. That's going to then help you to appreciate even the little things that happen in life, and it overall, again, they say the endorphins in your brain and all of those fun things will be triggered to make you a more positive person. And again, if you're positive, that's going to feed to your coworkers, and it's also going to help productivity for you and your team. I want to remind you to celebrate those little wins, though, and remember the people in the background. Sometimes and I know as a manager, sometimes I think about, the whole group, and I forget that in the back of the scenes, there's this person who's working who may not want all this attention, but to be able to walk up to that individual and say, thank you. Now I've spread that positivity in the workforce, not only for me because I feel better, but also to that person. And with National Kindness Day, Random Acts of Kindness Day coming up on February 17th, I think it's a great opportunity to remind ourselves, take a moment, do something nice, be kind to somebody. I'm one of the ones first time I had someone in front of me at Starbucks that bought me my coffee, I was like, whoa. So periodically I still do that. I don't know how good they feel, but I feel really great because I did something nice for somebody else. And maybe they made them smile. I think that all of this, though, leads to building those healthy relationships in the work environment. One of the others, I said something about ditching the drama. And I would say the same thing. If you want a more positive work environment, you need to not be drawn into those negative Nellies. It's time to break away from that and to start building relationships with people, especially those that tend not to be toxic. Oprah Winfrey is probably one of the most positive people in our business world today. She had a session one time on toxic individuals, and I didn't get to see it because I was working, but a friend called me and said, you've got to see this. You have a toxic coworker, and she said how to deal with it, and it gave some great advice about how smiling, killing them with kindness, and ultimately you may have to leave working with that individual on the team or something like that, but I really think you need to find ways to create a relationship. Find things that you share in common. Do you all like cats? Do you like dogs? Do you have pets? Do you have kids? Do you like sports? Find that reason to be able to share and build that relationship. One time I had a person who reported to me who loved Dancing with the Stars, absolutely loved it. Every Tuesday, would come in and tell me about, Dancing with, and I knew nothing. I'm going, okay, great. I have no idea who Val is. So I'm like, I'm going to take the initiative. I started recording it, and when I got home on Monday nights, I would watch snippets of it. I did not watch the whole hour every night, but I'd watch pieces of it. So the next day I can say, wow, Val did a great job, didn't he? And build that relationship, and it caused that positivity in the workforce. And she felt more loyal not only to the organization, but to me, because we could share that connectedness. But it really ultimately is about developing that trust and that respect among your coworkers at all levels, because now you've built that relationship. And that's true not only with coworkers, but with customers, your clients, and so forth. And ultimately, the last thing that I want to share with that I think has a huge impact on positivity in the workplace is to think about, why did you take this job? What made this job the job that you wanted to? If you think about the mission and the reason why, even on your worst day, and you go back to that, been working for DHHS, it's about taking care of others, about helping improve the lives of the people we serve. And we could just have talked to the worst person in the entire world, okay? The grumpiest, most negative person. But if you think about the person, the little old man that you helped yesterday, and that's what it was all about, those are the kinds of things that are going to improve your attitude, increase your positivity. And so every day, just think about that positive thing that has happened to you and the reason that you're doing your job that you're doing today. And that's going to overall help improve your positiveness in the workplace. So that's kind of I had 10 minutes. Hopefully I gave you the short version, and that gives you some great feedback and some ideas. And again, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Rochelle. I really like what you're talking about. I think positivity really is contagious. Even if you have to make yourself do it, it really does spread. All right, Ina, you are next, and I will make you the presenter.
Thank you. Ina Turkuk. I work with Shared Services. I work with Department of Banking and Finance, Economic Development, and Department of Insurance. And I'm really excited to speak on the topic of positivity. Many reasons, I guess, but mostly, let me pull up my PowerPoint here in a sec. There we go. Can you all see it? Thumbs up? Okay. I always thought I was on this really secret mission, honestly, just from childhood and young adulthood, and secret mission of spreading positivity. But then I took the Strengths Finder and I realized that it's my top 5. And so it's no longer a secret anymore because we share a top 5 with actually anyone who walks into our office. We have that on our desk. But positivity is really, what are the first thoughts that come in your mind when you wake up? What are the first things you think about? Your first interactions with humans, if you have humans in your home, or maybe your first interaction with humans are at work. Your reaction. In my family, we talk a lot about Monday-Friday syndrome. I don't know if you know about it, but it's basically like, oh my gosh, it's Monday. You know, when you come to work on Monday, everyone will exclaim, oh, it's Monday, or oh my gosh, happy Friday, everyone. And so that really stuck with me because it doesn't really matter if it's Monday or Friday, really, because if it's Friday, Monday's just around the corner. It's really the way we approach our day at home and at work. And I wanted to share this book that we learned when we went through Lean Six Sigma methodology training for the Greenbelt that I have. Edward de Bono, it's the 6 thinking hats. And I actually identify with the yellow hat. It's the positivity, positive and optimistic. Other folks may identify with different ways of thinking, which is an awesome thing as well. We do need people that are passionate about things. We need organization and structure and creativity. So being positive even about the type of hat you wear and the way you think. But behind the scenes, this is where positivity really kicks in for me. What happens behind the scenes where we're not in front of people, when we're not in someone's observation? The books we read, how do they impact our day? How do they impact the way we approach situations or stressful moments? The music we listen to, and then the interactions that we have. It's really important to look at your circle of influence and see how people impact the way your day goes, because those people have a huge impact on us, whether we want to agree or not. And another one that's really surprising to me, but I've been thinking a lot about, is nutrition. It's really how we fuel our body. It fuels everything in us. It's, the saying, you are what you eat. It really is. Really putting a foot forward in the way we energize our body and the way we fuel our bodies. And I've been thinking a lot about that because I have kids, and I can see if I give them too much sugar, they crash pretty quickly. And so I wanted you to think about that too, as far as nutrition goes. And then the real positivity is when we're with family or we're alone. We can smile and wave as it goes, or be extremely optimistic and positive in our work environment. But behind closed doors, that's the real us. And focus on that, even today, this evening. Focus on how much we smile when no one's looking. Or if it's just our family, that's the real, I think, indicator of our positivity meter. If we look at that and realize that we're not doing it for anyone except ourselves. So I've been thinking a lot about that. And I really wanted to call everyone to experiment. I love experiments. They don't have to be long. You can do a day. You can try a week. But take a day, and every time you have a negative interaction or a negative communication or whatnot, respond with a positive. It's difficult because sometimes we get frustrated and we're humans. It could be a negative email or a negative interaction in the hallway with someone because, it's not 100% positivity at workplace, even though we do strive. Respond with a positive. It's almost killing that negativity with kindness. And I guarantee 100% that it works. I tried it many times. You really have to be sober-minded, though, because sometimes people, as they reply to us negatively, it's really hard to stay on point and keep that positivity going. But stick with it, even for a day, and you will see results. You will see how even the negative people in the office, they know you're the positive one, so they will kind of like keep their negativity back because they don't want to spoil your day. And then keep a journal. In my line of work, we do a lot of data collecting, and it sounds funny, but if you keep a journal and you write down, hey, I counteracted 7 negative comments today with a positive, and this is how it turned out. If you would do that, you will see the results. So I did want to encourage everyone to try it even for a day. It's hard, but it's well worth it. And then before me, it was mentioned to be contagious. I really believe in that. I know the word contagious can come across negative, especially, with everything going on. But being contagious is so impactful. Even that smile that you smile when you don't really want to, there's something happens that on the receiving end that person returns a smile back. And so I love the example you just shared about a random acts of kindness and the line at Starbucks. I had a friend that shared with me that she goes through every time she gets paid, she goes through a fast food line or whatnot, and she pays for the car behind her. So one day I tried it, and I was just so giddy about it that I paid for the person behind me, and then I was just so excited that I kept going, and I forgot my food. And so it seems hilarious. I had to go around again and pick that up. But there's something about it when you do random acts of kindness. It just makes you feel so good on the giving end. I'm not even talking about the receiving end. And that person behind you, they'll return that random act of kindness to somebody else. So I really encourage you to be contagious because positivity or negativity is truly contagious. I wanted to include this photo of this tree. A tree that's growing near water. What is happening? The roots are just getting all the nourishment. It never has any dry leaves. Imagine if we are that tree. We're constantly surrounded by teams that we work with, by family that we interact with. Imagine if you're a tree and you have all the nutrition, you have, you surround yourself, you put those resources into a good spot. And people around us will flourish as well because there's no other way. There's no other way because we will be feeding them that positivity, that good energy, good vibes. And so as far as teams go, I know that with teams, sometimes it's hard to be positive because, things come our way. And like I said before, we are just humans. But being that beacon or source of energy and positivity, if you are leading teams or working with teams, you can't afford not to invest in quiet time for yourself, a reflection for yourself, because basically you're going to be spreading that energy to your teams, to your family, even person in line at the grocery store. And so people can feel that. And I know some of us may say, well, my strength is not positivity or whatnot. I would encourage you to lean on whatever your strength is, because I feel like if we're using our strengths and maximizing them, that brings joy to us. That makes us happy because we know that we're living with a purpose. and we are being our best selves. And so, in conclusion, I again want to thank you for giving this opportunity. It's an honor for me to speak to teammates across different agencies. I do hope I run into you in person and very soon, because I do need people. I love in-person, face-to-face interactions. But I would encourage you, just try it. Just experiment one day and reply with a positive comment. And I'll tell you, I have teenagers. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. But something happens when you are the mature one, when you are the positive one, and you reply in a way where eventually they will give up. 2, 3, 4 positive comments will be like, okay, in this positivity, I give up. So anyway, I just wanted to encourage you all, and thank you very much. I look forward to hearing other speakers and hearing your questions as well.
Thank you so much. Those are just great insights. I'm definitely going to try your experiment. I have a 7-year-old, so I think it will be very useful with her as well. And now I'll move on to Philana.
Afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Katie, and the organizers of Talk to the Experts. I do not consider myself an expert, so too, I am indeed grateful just for the opportunity to be here in lieu of Director Frakes having to go and testify for a legislative bill. But anyway, let's get right to it. I am so thankful for those that go before you, because it kind of paves the way to be a little bit easier on content, and you can just reinforce and echo points that already came forward. But I wrote down some things that absolutely remind me on days when it's very difficult to not see what's not going well in my line of work. We work with the I work in the Department of Correctional Services, and there's no one in our custody that wants to be here. It is the most difficult place I have ever worked. And with that, I chose to work here because I know personally and professionally the power of positivity. It matters to me how those in our custody are treated. It matters to me how staff interact with the public on behalf of those that are in our custody. And it matters to me how my teammates, the teams that I lead, my teams are all remote. They're local in the facilities. They are also placed in our work release centers across the state. So having state oversight, having your team stretched abroad, it's important to me how they're doing, because we don't always get the everyday interaction unless it's over the phone. You have to travel some miles to get to each other, or you're just emailing back and forth. So I want to echo their one is power and positivity. I also want to bring to light that some of us are just naturally, genetically prone to be more positive. Science provides us with information that genetics make up 50% of who we are as an individual. So some of us are from more positive environments. Some of us have more supportive systems at home. Some of us made a determination, whether, it was stubbornness or, well, you think like this, I'm going to think like. We've chosen to be more positive. Does that mean we're at our capacity of what amount of positivity we can obtain and we can pour out? Absolutely not. I, without a doubt, believe positivity is something that can be cultivated. It is something that you can make small efforts in your daily routine to generate more positivity for you. Positivity is contagious. It has the ability to not only drive, but excite yourself, excite your teammates, excite your management, excite the very cultures in which you work in. Being a manager now for just some time, we're able to see people want recognition for the work that they do. They want recognition for being on time. They want recognition for their contributions to the big picture of our agencies, of our teams. And so with that, sometimes when recognition is lacking, we can get into power struggles. Don't struggle for power. Focus your need for recognition or power to being positive and become recognized in a different way without a title change, right? We can't always operate with money increase. We can't always operate with, bringing cakes and cookies and all of that kind of stuff. But be okay with recognition of I'm changing the atmosphere of a room by my very presence of walking in with a positive attitude. Because ultimately, whether you carry the power of title of the director, whether you carry the title of the recorder of the minutes for the meeting you're in, you can change and shift the room by your very disposition. You can also reduce turnover. Sometimes people don't just leave for poor management. They leave because of poor teammates. If you're always a negative person, if you're always, not maybe doing your part, if you always feel like you are burdened with someone else's lack of contribution, follow your agency processes to kind of maybe air some of that positively instead of tipping off into some of what we can get into is gossiping, talking about someone, slandering, also avoiding them completely. We can just be like, that girl needs to stay away from me. And we're not talking about everybody here being friends. That's not the ultimate goal of every agency. The goal is to serve others. The goal is to serve, the areas in which we work in to offer the best customer service delivery that we can. Also, as a teammate, there are some things that you can do, whether you are a manager, whether you are a teammate, to improve the culture of your workplace. The first thing is to show gratitude, to recognize grace that is needed, not towards you, but towards someone else. There's not a person on this call that can check the box for perfection. Human things show up differently for us all. Now, many of us may say, well, I have that problem or concern, but I suck it up. I do this. Well, when we all lay down our thumbprint, which I've learned, in corrections, my thumb, my fingerprint gets taken a lot. There is no one else on this earth that has your fingerprint except for you. All we can offer someone is strategy and tips to how to manage a situation they may be faced to, but guarantee the outcome may be very different because they are a different individual. Being gracious, understanding that people aren't always going to be performative. Model the positive behavior. Also, being a person in modeling positivity behavior, walk the talk. I am so, again, offended by hypocrites. We all can't expect someone to do something that we're not even willing to do. If you're not willing to accept feedback that you may not have said that the right way, you may not have come off with the right tone, you may have unknowingly offended someone, let's not lean in on our power or our perceived power and be like, well, get over it. I said I was sorry. Come on. Is that a genuine apology? And you want someone to turn the other cheek for you. Let's not ask people for something we're not even willing to give. Also, using positive communication. We know that not every single thing that we are placed with each and every day leads to a road of positivity. It doesn't always energize us. It doesn't always make us, feel like we're putting our best foot forward. But if you can find an element to tap into that situation positively, we as managers and you as a teammate can still address something negative, but you can address it positively so that no one can walk away with extreme offense. I have a real life example today, and I got permission from my boss before I share it, but I received an email that said, hey, I want to talk about this news release. I kind of got a little concerned. Schedule 15 minutes with me for Thursday. I said, okay, well, today is Thursday, right? So I get that schedule, calendar access open, blah, blah, blah. Get that meeting. I walk down, and the person I need to speak to about the release says, what's up? So I said, we have our 15 minutes to talk about the news release, concern. Oh, I said Friday. Oh, okay. Well, actually, Friday will work better for me anyway. Let me, look for a time on Friday. Now, mind you, Falana in her 20s would have been like, your email said Thursday. So sometimes not proving the point of right or wrong in the heat of a situation can cause us to lose relationship with someone. It could cause us to come off as we're an individual that's fault finding. We're not trying to do that. We're ultimately just trying to say, what can Falana say on this news release so it will meet NDCS's standards of approval, right? But I could have got into it like, well, you want me to show you the email? I got my work phone right here. No, let's not get in the weeds on things that fuel our negativity, but focus on the things that will get us in a resolution. Now, many people might hear that and be like, well, she one of them woo people. She one of them people that try to make friends. Trust me, woo is my 31. I'm not here to make friends. I don't really avoid conflict. I just know that there's better ways to resolve through healthy, positive communication instead of getting into the battle of who's right and who's wrong in the moment. That doesn't serve the community. It doesn't serve the team meeting. It doesn't serve either one of us growing as individuals. Foster healthy relationships. I do think that if you want a friend, you got to show yourself friendly. If you want a teammate to come to you, ask you questions, show yourself to be open, have an open door, be like, oh, hey, I may not be strong in this, but lean in on some of your positive strengths to maybe help them like, oh, hey, I'm good. I used to work at Medicaid. I'm good with, farmland calculations. I'm not so good with the nursing home situation. But, offer help to those that might be struggling in other situations, being a safe space. If people come to you and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, don't gossip and share their business. Just hold that and say, well, what can I do? Do you want access to HR stuff? Do you want, just somebody to share it to? Oh, no, I just need to talk because I was having a hard day. And that's great if they trust you with that situation. Something else we can do, we can encourage teamwork and collaboration. I know recognition may be low, but we can get more accomplished as a team if we collaborate versus we approaching work as a lone ranger. Sometimes it's easy to separate from a team that seems to be rejecting you, that appears to not value your input. Find a way to talk to your teammates and your supervisor to say, hey, I kind of, don't feel a part of the team, instead of maybe, taking off in a different direction. And last but not least, something that I really appreciated about good supervisors and not so good supervisors, I've learned what works and what doesn't work. Care about people first, and the work will get done second. I'm not saying that we always allow individuals to skirt accountability or to not meet, outcomes, because we all up under the SMART goals. We all are up under, Nebraska, as state employees, the statutes and things like that. But if I never ask how you are, how your family is, oh, didn't you say your dog had a procedure? I really like the example Rochelle said about the watching Dancing with the Stars. One of my teammates was like, oh, have you ever watched something with zombies? I said, oh, because I'm scared of that. But, all I did was took like 5 minutes and watched, I swear, I watched a little clip. That was enough, and I was able to say, so the one that wears the green shirt. Oh, yeah, and they said the name, and they felt so excited, and they was like, which episode was that? I said, to be honest, it was a clip. I get nervous because I can't sleep if I watch, and they kind of chuckle. But the fact that I took the effort to even try meant something to them. If they brag, like pictures and opposites, like, oh, is this your family? Things like that, just letting people know that you notice more about them than the work that they bring to the team. Something that I did, more my hairdresser did to me 2 years ago. She's like, girl, you've been brown too long. I'm about to make you white blonde. I said, ooh, so that got me a lot of attention, right? But then I had to be able to be okay with that because I'm not used to people. Oh, I like your hair. Oh, who color? I don't, but I've learned to do that with individuals I work with, like, oh, nice haircut. Oh, nice glasses. Ina and I work together a lot. And I said, Ina, you look so nice with your high heels on. I ain't never seen nobody wear high heels in corrections. Ina do. So what she used to. And so I used to have to acknowledge that. But anyway, I'm going to summarize here. There's been a lot of great tips shared here. Many of you have worked with me in various spaces because I started out at DHHS and Medicaid, and I moved over to corrections. But understand this, that people will be able to know if your positivity is real or if it's fake. Be who you are authentically. Acknowledge those areas in which there's opportunity for growth, and then be open to challenging yourself and receiving assistance. And if your goal is to become more positive, work on that. If your goal is to actually just be a better teammate, work on that. But we're not here, hopefully, to sell you on something that every day is a rainbow shiny day. But I am here to tell you that if you look for something positive in the day, you will find it. And I thank you all so much for your attention. And thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. I love all the points you made. Sometimes it's not easy and you have to make an effort to find the positive thing that happened. But once you do, it makes all the difference. So thank you so much. I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, if you thought of something along the way, you can go ahead and submit those now. You don't have to wait till the Q&A section. Tracy is ready for those questions. And last but not least, I will hand it over to Brian, and I will make you the presenter as well.
And, listening to you guys go, it kind of makes me wish I would have gone first because I don't know how I'm going to follow all of that. Let me bring up my file. I was internally shouting amen at everything that you guys were sharing. It's fantastic, and I really enjoyed it, and I just hope I can do the three of you some justice here in following up. All right, so I just want to share briefly here. One thing, listening to Rochelle, Ina, and Philana, it's clear to hear the passion in their voice. It's something they're very passionate about, and it's the same for me as well. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. And the reason is because a little over a decade ago, I worked for a financial institution here in Lincoln. And I won't get into all the details, but it was a very toxic work environment. It was very difficult to go to work. In fact, on Fridays, I would come home and, most people are excited for the weekend. That wasn't the case for me. It was, I would come home and I was just in this funk. I could not get out of it because I was thinking in 2 days I got to go back there. And it just started all over again. And I felt a lot like this person that we see in the slide here. And hopefully most of us have not. Hopefully that's been the exception. It's been the exception for me in my professional career, but it was a very life-changing moment as well, because when I ultimately left there and I came to the state, just after that experience, I was determined never to be in that situation again. I was not going to allow that to happen again. And what I mean by that is not, there's things I can't control. There's things all of us cannot control, right? A situation may be difficult and may be negative by nature of just the circumstances, but what I can control is myself and my outlook and my perspective on what's going on around me, and I can try to influence. And that's what I loved. I think all three of you hit on that. And Philana, you said, I love that. No matter your role, you can be the change, or you can change the room, and I just love that. We can have that influence, especially on ourselves, but then also those around us. So. I had an opportunity several years ago to write a class, and that's called Building Team Morale. And so what I'm going to share with you is a portion of that. And I'm going to put a plug in for this book, How Full Is Your Bucket? I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but just hold on a second. I just hit a wrong button, and my screen went down. There we go. Sorry. So in a nutshell, what that book is about. It's bucket and dipper theory, and basically each of us has a bucket. When our bucket is full, we're energized, we're positive, we're productive, we enjoy coming to work. When our bucket is depleted, we're not engaged, we're not energized, and we're just kind of dragging ourselves through the day. And then each of us also has a dipper, and we either fill other people's bucket or we withdraw from their bucket, and vice versa. Others do the same with us. And so, you know, what are those things that fill our bucket, so to speak? And so I'm going to just share here one of the things they talked about in there. And we talked about positivity. One thing I'm going to talk about here is negativity, though, the impact negativity can have upon us individually in our workplace. And in the book, they share the story of U.S. POWs during the Korean War. The mortality rate of U.S. soldiers in POW camps during the Korean War was 38%. That's the highest mortality rate in the history of U.S. military conflict and warfare. And what's interesting about it is that despite this high mortality rate, the soldiers were not tortured in the sense of what we think of in traditional, torture. They were, for the most part, well-fed, clothed. They were given shelter. In some cases, they were not even kept in the prison with barbed wire. Yet, very few ever try to escape. And then when they were ultimately released, when they were given the opportunity to call home or contact their loved ones, many of them didn't do it, or at least initially didn't do it. And they didn't stay in touch either. So you hear the term like band of brothers. When people go through a traumatic experience together, usually there's a bond that's formed. That didn't happen in this case. Most of them didn't stay in touch with one another and never contacted each other again. And so they wanted to know, what did the Koreans do during this war to the POWs that caused this high mortality rate and this reaction. And what they found was they denied these men, these POWs, the emotional support that comes from interpersonal relationships. Some of the things they did were they would try to break the relationships by encouraging them to basically snitch or tattle on one another. And what they would do is they would reward the informant with cigarettes, but they would never punish the offender nor the informant, but they would reward the person who was tattling, so to speak. They would make them get into groups of maybe 10 or 12 and verbalize and confess all of the bad things they had done in their life, and also all the good things they could have done but they didn't do. They also would screen any mail that would come through. So if it was known that there was a soldier in a POW camp and the War Department and State Department knew that, and the family was notified and letters would be sent through those channels to the POW camp, they would screen the letters, and anything that offered a positive encouragement would be thrown out. It was not passed through. But anything with negativity, so the word of a passing of a loved one or a family member, in some cases a wife who was telling her husband that she was leaving him, or even there were cases of past due bills being passed through to these men. Anything negative, they reinforced that. And what happened was what the soldiers came to call give-up-itis. There were cases of some of these soldiers walking out into an area, laying down, and within a day or two they were dead. And it was just the negativity was so powerful in their lives, and that it was being so magnified that was the result, and they called it give-up-itis, and it resulted in the highest mortality rate in the history of POW camps. Another anecdote in the book is from Gallup. Gallup did a survey. They asked parents, a group of parents, if your student shows you or your child shows you this report card, they get an A in English, an A in social studies, a C in biology, and an F in algebra. Which grade deserves the most attention from you? And the response was only 7% said the A. Now notice there's two A's, but only 7% said the A. 77% said the F. Now, does the F need attention? Absolutely it does. But what this reinforces is in our culture, and all you have to do is turn on the news. I mean, I don't care what news network you turn it on, and there's negativity. There's, you get on social media or Twitter, which I don't recommend, a lot of negativity that's out there. And there's actually a term called doom scrolling now that we just, on our phones or devices, we're going through and it's just negative headline after negative headline, yet we continue to scroll through it. And so our culture, our society just seems to gravitate toward the negative. And this is just a picture of this. So again, it doesn't mean that we ignore the F. It doesn't mean that it doesn't need attention. It does. But notice here, if this was your child, your student, there's 2 A's. They are really doing a fantastic job in 2 of the 4 classes. And then another item, and I think this is one of the most powerful illustrations or examples in the book that's given, is this idea of this magic ratio, that there needs to be a 5-to-1 ratio of positive versus negative interactions in a relationship. And to show this researcher named John Gottman, in 1992, he recruited 700 couples that were either about to be married or were just recently married. He brought them in, each couple in individually, sat them down, and just recorded a 15-minute conversation between the 2 of them. So 700 recordings, 700 15-minute recordings between the husband and wife and their interaction and their conversation. What he did then is he went and he studied each one of those recordings, each one of those conversations, and recorded the number of positive interactions versus the number of negative interactions between the 2. Using this 5-to-1 ratio as a guide, then, he predicted which marriages would last and survive and which ones would ultimately end in divorce. And he followed up then 10 years later to see how accurate he was off of a 15-minute conversation, simply recording the positive versus negative interactions, and this was how accurate he was. He predicted with a 94% accuracy of the couples that would be together after 10 years versus the ones that wouldn't, based off of that 15-minute conversation. And similar studies have been done in the workforce of what is the ratio of positive versus negative for employees and teammates to be engaged, productive, enjoy their work, and a great teammate, and it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So it's not quite as high, it's not the 5-to-1, but it's a minimum of 3-to-1 of positive versus negative interactions. Now, interestingly, they also say, though, it can go too high. If you get to a ratio of 13-to-1, 13 positive to 1 negative, or higher, then you start seeing detrimental results as well. And the reason for that is because nobody is ever being held accountable at that point. And so I want to emphasize, it's not, when we're talking about positivity in the workplace, we're not talking about pretending that everything is great. And again, Flan, I think you'd mentioned this. It's not always sunshine and roses. Listen, there's challenges. There are hard days. And I mentioned what I went through a little over a decade. In that time since, I've been in situations that it's negative. It's hard. But my perspective and my outlook has changed. And so we need to be real about that. There are bad days. There's negative things that happen. And so it's not living in denial of that, but it's having a proper perspective and attitude and perspective as you come into those situations, and having that positive versus negative interactions. And one thing I want to say too is, don't be afraid to fail. Now, the things I shared, this class that I teach is really geared toward people leaders, but these principles apply throughout. Again, I just love that, Flana, what you said. We can, no matter your role, if you're a people leader or not, you are a leader in the sense you can influence those around you. But if you are a people leader as well, if you have people that report to you, one way you can help with positivity is really strive to create a culture, an environment where it's safe to fail, because that's how they're going to grow. They're going to learn. And if people are afraid to make mistakes, then they're never going to reach their potential, and your team will never reach its potential. A few examples on this. Many of you probably already know the story of Post-it notes, but Post-it notes, if you don't know, I think it was 3M, some engineers there were trying to invent a super strong adhesive, but what they actually invented was a tacky reusable adhesive. So they failed in their initial goal of the super strong adhesive, but then they realized, hey, this could be used if we put this on paper, and we can put that paper on another object, and we can reuse that. So there was success from that failure. Thomas Edison with the light bulb, when he was trying to perfect the light bulb, they had already been invented in that sense. They knew the element could create light using electricity, but they couldn't get the element right. It burned out very quickly. So he was trying to perfect that. And it took him over 10,000 tries. And after he figured it out, he said, I did not fail. I just discovered 10,000 ways that didn't work. But ultimately, he got there. And then I think one of my favorite examples is the story of WD-40, the spray lubricant. If you ever wondered what WD-40 stands for, WD stands for water displacement. And the 40 is because it was the 40th try before they got it right. It was created by some engineers at a company called the Rocket Chemical Company, which I think is the coolest sounding name for a company. But Rocket Chemical Company, and they were trying to find something that they could use to seal the outer skin of the Atlas missiles and protect them from rust and corrosion. But it took them 40 tries. And then they realized, hey, there's a broader application for this. They marketed it. And now, WD-40, while maybe not the most creative name, is synonymous with, even the generic brand, you probably would refer to it as WD-40. But the point of it here is that these all came out of ultimately failures that led to success. So as a people leader, make it safe for people on your team to fail where possible, when possible. That, if I'm having an open heart surgery, I don't want failure to be an option. But in those times where it's safe to do so, allow people the freedom to do different things and try different things and fail even, because that's where they will learn and they will grow, and encourage them through that. So I ran through that pretty quickly, but I'll hand it back to you, Katie, if you want to open it up to questions.
Great, thank you. I just want to point out, too, the name of the book that Brian was referencing is How Full Is Your Bucket? They also have a version for kids, which is pretty cool. I have that for my daughter. And the class that Brian was pulling from is called Building Morale, and if anybody's interested, you can register for that in the EDC. Our next session is March 23rd. And now I will hand it over to Tracy. I think we have time for a couple questions.
All right, great. First question is, how would you recommend handling coworkers who give you the cold shoulder? Anyone?
This is Solana again. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Nope, you go ahead.
Please, no. You let us all go.
Actually, what I was going to say is I was going to reference back to what you had said about of changing the room and just really quick. That this book, How Full Is Your Bucket? I had a job where I had a team that was very dysfunctional. It was outside of state government, but there were 6 people on this team, and there was a history there. 2 of them were ex-sister-in-laws, so it kind of gives you a picture of some of the negativity on that team. And what I did to work on this team is I bought the book, a copy for each of them, had them read it, and then it gave us this common language. I talked to them in one-on-ones, and then one day, a few months later after that, I got an email from somebody who was just on the team. She goes, I hate to bring this to you, but here's what happened, and it was just, I'm tired of how they're acting like this, and, anyway, on. I'm like, first, I'm glad they come to me, but I just replied, and all I said was, look for ways to fill their bucket. And she wrote back, and she just said, you're a genius, which no, I'm not a genius. But it was just, honestly, I didn't know what else to say. Just look for ways to fill their bucket. It was like a Monday or Tuesday, and then I think it was on Thursday or Friday that same week I was talking to her, and she said the week turned around completely. She did that. She looked for ways to be positive with them. It changed their outlook. And what I told her, and I told a few others on that team, if people want to be a jerk, they're going to be a jerk. When you're positive toward them, if they're giving you that cold shoulder, if they're treating you a certain way, if you're showing them kindness, then it makes it a little bit harder for them to be that jerk.
All right. Thank you. With COVID and being isolated from doing normal activities, what would you suggest a person start doing immediately?
Hi, this is Solana, and I'm thankful that my answer for the previous question is going to be good for this one. I would immediately invest in stamps and send people a note. When individuals do not seem warm for you to approach them, come in their office, eat lunch with them, make small talk with them, I've not seen any individual reject a note. they don't have to be at their desk when you leave it. You know maybe where their mailbox is. If we work for the state of Nebraska or any organization, there's inter-office mail opportunity. Put a note in the mail to someone. I've bought stamps more in 20 than I think I done bought in the last 5 or 10 years. It's either email, text. My nieces are young adults, and they're like, Titi, you need to get Google Duo. So get these space things on your phone, but more importantly for coworkers or family members, send a note. Hey, I was just thinking about you today. I just wanted to say hi. It doesn't have to be so formal, but let it be genuine and thoughtful.
Okay. We have time for one more, Katie? Okay, thank you. Is there a good way to deal with the person who is always disingenuous when they say thank you? Like their tone is always snarky and not at all that of a thankful person.
I think it's really important to figure out why they are feeling this way. It's really not, I never take things personal because I know people have lives and outside forces. And so it's really important to be sensitive and not get offended right away, but reach out and find out what's really eating them gently. Don't pry, but I think that really helps with building trust. So you build trust with this person, and then you are able to kind of get over that snarkiness. So spend more time being kind. I mean, it's easy. You just be kind. You keep doing it. They'll get over it.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one more. Let's see. What if the culture I work in is so negative it's hard to stay positive?
One thing I would say.
Go ahead.
For me, I would say this is what's worked for me, is just finding something, and this kind of goes back to perspective, but finding something, I guess, outside of that situation that you can lean on. For myself, just to be, transparent here, my faith is very important to me. My family is very important to me. And, I've been with state government since 2007. I left in 2018 and came back again in 2020. But in those 2 years when I left and went to the private sector, it was a huge challenge for me. It was very humbling. It was a great experience, but it was really, really difficult and hard. And, there were days I was there and I'm thinking, I'm in way over my head. This is hard. I don't like this. But I just thought, you know what? At the end of the day, I get to go home. And that got me through, and so try to maintain that perspective, find something, whether it's family, faith, a hobby, something that you can invest into. Also, outside of that negative situation, think about what you're bringing in. And so, whether it's entertainment or, again, social media, if you have other negative influences too, that can influence it. And so maybe you need to limit that. And ultimately, I think, Rochelle, you'd maybe mentioned this, of you may have to even look at, in an extreme circumstance, of removing yourself from that situation, if maybe that's not the place for you. Maybe, and hopefully it wouldn't come to that, but I think it's, this is a big enough topic and serious enough. If that's the case, you would maybe have to consider a difficult decision like that as a last resort.
And I would say start with baby steps, one person at a time. You can find that relationship with one person, get that person to be more positive. That will gradually spread. It takes time, and you have to be patient. If that's really where you want to be and what you want to be doing, one day at a time, one step at a time, find that person that you have a relationship. Keep smiling, and just stay positive.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I think I've been nodding for like the last hour. Everything that you guys have said was so great today, so I really appreciate it. So just thank you again to the panelists for sharing your knowledge. And we just appreciate everybody who joined us today on the call. Hope you got something out of it. Remember to register for our next Ask the Experts panel session on setting expectations. That will be February 25th at 1 o'clock. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great Thursday.